share, and comment your thoughts. At the very back, a man who looked like he hadn't slept properly in years watched the moment unfold. His jacket was thin, his shoes worn down at the heel, and his beard neatly trimmed in a way that suggested pride despite hardship. He stood up before the driver could speak again. "I've got it," the man said gently, stepping forward. He dropped a couple of coins into the tray. "For her." The woman turned, startled. "Oh, no, I couldn't." "It's all right," he said, meeting her eyes with a small, reassuring smile. "Happens to everyone." The driver nodded, waved her through, and the bus lurched back into motion. The woman hesitated for a second, then moved down the aisle and took the empty seat beside the man. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I'm Eleanor." "Martin," he replied. "Nice to meet you." For a moment, they sat in silence as the bus rolled past rows of early opening shops and sleepy streets. Eleanor stared out the window, her reflection faint against the glass. Martin noticed the way she held herself, calm, thoughtful, like someone used to solving problems but momentarily caught off guard. "I'll pay you back," she said after a while. "I promise." He shook his head. "No need. I didn't do it to be paid back." She studied him then, really looked at him. "Still," she said, "thank you. You don't know how much that meant just now." Martin shrugged lightly. "Kindness doesn't need knowing." Eleanor smiled at that, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "That's a lovely way to put it." The bus continued its route, stopping and starting, collecting people with their own private worries. Eleanor glanced at Martin again. "Do you ride this bus often?" "Most days," he said. "It's warm, and it takes me where I need to go." "And where's that?" she asked, not prying, just curious. He hesitated, then answered honestly. "Anywhere that'll have me for a few hours. Libraries, community centers. Sometimes I just ride the whole way." She nodded, absorbing that without judgment. "I used to think buses were just for getting from one place to another," she said. "Lately, I've realized they're more like moving stories." Martin chuckled softly. "That's a nice thought." They talked as the bus traveled on, about books, about the changing neighborhoods outside the windows, about how easy it was to feel invisible in a busy city. Eleanor listened more than she spoke, and Martin found himself talking in a way he hadn't for a long time. He didn't mention how he'd lost his job years ago after the company downsized, or how one setback had quietly followed another. He didn't need to. Eleanor seemed to understand without details. When the bus slowed near the city center, Eleanor stood. "This is me," she said. "I'm really glad I sat next to you, Martin." "Me too," he replied. She reached into her bag again, then stopped herself, smiling ruefully. "I know you said no, but would you at least let me buy you a coffee sometime?" He laughed, surprised. "All right," he said. "I won't argue with coffee." They exchanged a quick handshake that felt warmer than expected. Eleanor stepped off the bus, disappearing into the flow of people. Martin watched her go, then sat back down, feeling lighter than he had when the day began. Weeks passed, and life settled back into its familiar rhythm for Martin. He spent mornings at the library, afternoons at the community center, evenings wherever he could find quiet. The memory of Eleanor stayed with him, not because she was remarkable in some obvious way, but because she'd treated him like a person, not a problem. One afternoon, as Martin sat reading in the library, a familiar voice spoke his name. He looked up, startled, to see Eleanor standing there, her hair neatly tied back, her coat smart and well-fitted. "Martin," she said brightly. "I hoped I'd find you here." He stood, unsure. "Eleanor." "Hello." "I've been looking for you," she said. "I wasn't sure if you'd remember the coffee offer." He smiled. "I remember." They walked to a small cafe nearby, the kind with chipped mugs and handwritten menus. Over coffee, Eleanor spoke more about herself. She worked in property, she said. She liked restoring old buildings, giving them new life without erasing their stories. "You must do well," Martin said, not envious, just observant. She nodded. "I do all right. But I wasn't always. I've been fortunate. And I've had help." She paused, then met his eyes seriously. That day on the bus, it stayed with me. Not because of the money. Because you didn't hesitate. Martin looked down at his cup. It was a couple of coins. It was a choice, she corrected gently. And it reminded me of who I want to be. They talked until the afternoon light softened. When they parted, Eleanor pressed a card into his hand. If you ever need anything, she said. Or if you just want to talk. He thanked her, tucking the card carefully into his pocket. A month later, Martin stood outside a renovated brick building near the edge of the city, staring up at the sign that read Community Haven. Eleanor had invited him to the opening, saying only that she wanted him there. Inside, the space was warm and welcoming, reading rooms, a small kitchen, quiet corners for rest. Eleanor found him near the doorway. What do you think? She asked. It's beautiful, he said honestly. What is it? A place for people who need a pause, she replied. No questions, no pressure. Just space. She hesitated, then added, I wanted you to be the first to know, I've set aside a role here. Part-time. Helping out, organizing books, welcoming people. If you want it. Martin's breath caught. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a place, she said. If you'd like it. Tears pricked his eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. Why? He asked quietly. She smiled, eyes shining. Because once, when it would have been easy to look away, you chose kindness. And that choice rippled further than you know. Martin accepted. Not just the job, but the chance to belong again. Months later, as he stood at the front desk of Community Haven, greeting visitors with the same gentle smile he'd offered Eleanor on the bus, he thought about how small moments carried big futures inside them. A bus fare. A seat beside a stranger. A simple act of care. Kindness, he realized, was never wasted. It always found its way back, sometimes not as repayment, but as hope, renewed and shared.